Before cathedrals and Vatican walls, the Christian story began with witnesses who followed Jesus Christ. Among those witnesses was Simon Peter, a fisherman remembered as an early shepherd of the Christian community. Jesus called Simon Peter away from his nets and into a mission that would change the course of history. Peter followed Jesus through villages, fields, synagogues, and crowned roads, learning what it meant to serve. Jesus would entrust Peter with a mission far greater than he could yet understand. Peter became one of the closest witnesses to the life and ministry of Jesus. He saw signs that convinced him that Jesus was more than an ordinary teacher. Peter's faith would grow, but his courage would also be tested. On the night before his death, Jesus warned his disciples that their faith would soon be shaken. Peter believed he was ready to remain faithful, whatever happened. But in the darkness of Gethsemane, Peter discovered how fragile human courage could be. When Jesus was arrested, fear began to overcome the disciples. That night, Peter struggled with fear and denied knowing Jesus 3 times. His failure broke him, but it would not be the end of his story. After the resurrection, Peter encountered the mystery that transformed fear into faith. Beside the sea, Peter received the call to feed Christ's flock. The man who had denied Jesus was entrusted again with a mission of shepherding. Peter returned to the community of believers with renewed courage. In Jerusalem, the first Christian community began to take visible shape. At Pentecost, Peter stepped forward publicly and proclaimed the message of Christ.
A frightened disciple who once hid in a courtyard now spoke boldly before the people.
The church grew through preaching, prayer, fellowship, and the witness of ordinary believers. The first Christians gathered in homes, sharing their faith and remembering the teaching of Jesus.
But the new movement quickly attracted opposition. Peter refused to abandon the message he had received from Christ. The mission of the church could no longer remain confined to Jerusalem. The gospel began traveling beyond Judea, carried from community to community. Wherever believers gathered, they remembered the apostles and preserved their teaching. Eventually, the story of Peter would become inseparable from Rome. Rome was the heart of the empire, but Peter entered it not as a ruler, but as a witness. In Rome, the Christian community lived quietly beneath the shadow of imperial power. Their strength came not from armies or wealth, but from faith. The political climate in Rome became increasingly dangerous for the followers of Christ. After the Great Fire of Rome, Christians became targets of suspicion and persecution. Peter encouraged the believers not to answer fear with hatred. Ancient Christian tradition remembers Peter eventually facing persecution in Rome. His final journey would become one of the defining memories of the Roman Church. The shepherd was approaching the end of his earthly journey. Tradition remembers Peter remaining faithful until the end.
The first great witness of Rome had given his life to Christ.
But the mission did not end with Peter.
Linus, remembered as Peter's successor, became the second bishop of Rome. Linus inherited a young Christian community living within the powerful Roman world. The church remained small, vulnerable, and determined.
The memory of Peter continued to shape the identity of the Roman community. Leadership meant preserving a faith received from the apostles.
The first generations of Christians learned to preserve the memory of their witnesses. Anacletus, also known as Cletus, followed Linus as the third bishop of Rome. The community continued to grow while remaining surrounded by the immense power of Rome.
The Christian church was still only a small presence within a vast pagan empire. The survival of the church depended on passing the apostolic faith from one generation to the next. Every generation inherited both a mission and a risk. Clement I became the fourth bishop of Rome near the end of the 1st century.
Clement left one of the earliest surviving witnesses to the authority and faith of the Roman Church. His letter to the Corinthians called a troubled Christian community back to peace and unity. The letter traveled across the ancient world as a voice from the Church of Rome.
Clement urged the Christians of Corinth toward humility, charity, and order.
Even while facing uncertainty, Christians were taught to pray rather than surrender to hatred. His writings reflected an early concern for apostolic continuity and ordered ministry. The church was learning that its faith was received and handed onward from one generation to the next.
The empire seemed enormous, but the Christian community was beginning to develop a memory of its own.
Evaristus followed Clement as the 5th bishop of Rome around the turn of the 2nd century. The Roman Church continued its quiet life of prayer and service. The church grew not only through public preaching, but through families and communities.
The new century brought new challenges, but the succession continued. Alexander I succeeded Evaristus during the early 2nd century. Each new bishop inherited a church still rooted in the memory of the apostles.
Rome remained a city of many gods, many cultures, and many competing beliefs. The Christian community answered the pressures around it by strengthening its bonds of faith. The memory of those who had died for the faith became part of the church's spiritual inheritance. Sixtus I became the 7th bishop of Rome during the early 2nd century.
The early Roman community continued developing its worship and discipline.
The church remained small enough to be vulnerable, yet organized enough to endure.
Telesphorus became the 8th bishop of Rome during the 2nd century. The Roman Church was increasingly connected with Christians from across the Mediterranean world. The faith was no longer confined to one people or one city. Across the empire, Christian communities were connected by letters, travelers, and shared belief. Hyginus followed Telesphorus as the 9th Bishop of Rome. The Church faced questions about teaching, worship, and the boundaries of authentic apostolic faith. The bishops of the early Church increasingly served as guardians of a received tradition. Pius I became the 10th Bishop of Rome during the middle of the 2nd century. The Roman community defended the faith it believed had been handed down from the apostles. Christianity was growing inside a civilization whose religious world was very different. A small light was spreading through the heart of the empire. Anicetus became the 11th Bishop of Rome during the 2nd century. Questions of practice revealed the growing diversity of the worldwide Christian community. Christian leaders from East and West could disagree while remaining conscious of their shared faith. The unity of the Church was expressed not only in ideas, but in shared worship. The Church was becoming a network stretching across the Roman world. Sota succeeded Anicetus and became known in Christian memory for charitable service. The ministry of the bishop included care for the vulnerable. Letters helped connect Christian communities separated by hundreds of miles. The written word became one of the Church's instruments of unity. Eleutherius succeeded Sota as the Church entered a more visible stage of expansion. Reports from distant communities increasingly reached Rome. The Roman bishop was becoming an important point of reference for Christians throughout the empire. Victor I became the 14th Bishop of Rome near the end of the 2nd century. Under Victor, the Roman Church took a stronger position in disputes affecting Christian communities. The question of Easter revealed the challenge of maintaining unity across different traditions.
The early Church was discovering that unity required both conviction and patience.
By the end of the 2nd century, Christianity had spread across the empire.
Zephyrinus became the 15th Bishop of Rome at the beginning of the 3rd century.
The Church faced internal debates, while external pressure remained a constant reality. The Christian community sought unity through prayer and fidelity to its tradition.
Callistus I became the 16th Bishop of Rome in the early 3rd century.
The Roman Church continued its mission of mercy among people from many social backgrounds. Questions of repentance, forgiveness, and restoration challenged the growing Church.
Beneath Rome, Christians developed sacred spaces where memory and hope endured.
Urban I succeeded Callistus and continued the ministry of the Roman Church. The Church continued to worship even when public recognition was impossible. The memory of the dead became a source of courage for the living. The 3rd century would bring some of the most severe trials yet. Pontian became the 18th Bishop of Rome during a challenging period for the Christian community. Under imperial pressure, Christian leadership became increasingly dangerous. Ancient tradition remembers Pontian spending his final period away from Rome in Sardinia. Pontian stepped aside so that the Roman Christian community could continue its leadership. Anterus succeeded Pontian for a very brief period during the turbulent 3rd century.
The Church was already beginning to recognize the importance of preserving the memory of its witnesses. Fabian became Bishop of Rome and served for many years during a comparatively stable period. The Church developed a more organized network of communities and ministries.
Service to the poor became an increasingly visible expression of Christian life.
For a time, the Church experienced room to grow.
But imperial policy would soon change again. Under Emperor Decius, loyalty to the traditional Roman gods became a serious test for Christians. Christians faced pressure to perform public sacrifices and obtain official proof of compliance. Fabian became one of the victims of the persecution. The Church mourned its bishop, but the succession would continue. Cornelius became Bishop of Rome after the persecution began to ease.
The Church now faced a painful question. How should those who had fallen under pressure be received again? For Cornelius, mercy and reconciliation had to remain part of the Church's mission. The wounds of persecution were spiritual, as well as social.
Yet persecution and political pressure had not disappeared. Cornelius himself would eventually suffer for his faith. Lucius I succeeded Cornelius during the continuing struggle of the 3rd century. The Church learned to rebuild after every wave of persecution. Stephen I became Bishop of Rome during important debates about baptism and Christian unity.
The early Church was not free from conflict, but its leaders continued seeking a common faith.
For the bishops of Rome, defending unity could be as difficult as surviving persecution.
Sixtus II became Bishop of Rome during another period of persecution.
Sixtus was captured while serving the Christian community. To Inclodus. His witness became part of the long memory of Roman Christian martyrdom. Dionysius succeeded Sixtus during a period when the Church was trying to recover. He helped restore stability to a community wounded by persecution. The Church survived because each generation rebuilt what persecution had damaged. Felix I became Bishop of Rome during a period when the Christian community experienced relative stability. Christian communities continued developing their liturgical and pastoral life. Eutychian succeeded Felix and served during a period remembered for care of the Christian dead. The memory of those who had died for Christ continued to shape Christian identity. Caius became Bishop of Rome as the empire approached another major confrontation with Christianity.
The Church was growing stronger internally, even as danger gathered outside.
Then came one of the most systematic persecutions the Church had yet experienced. At the beginning of the 4th century, Emperor Diocletian launched a major persecution of Christians.
During the persecution, Christian communities faced restrictions and the loss of sacred places and manuscripts.
Marcellinus led the Roman Church during the years immediately preceding the Great Persecution.
The pressure surrounding Christians was becoming increasingly severe. Yet even when buildings disappeared, the faith continued in the hearts of believers.
The memory of Marcellinus remains connected with the difficult years surrounding the Great Persecution. Marcellus I inherited a Christian community deeply affected by years of hardship.
The task was no longer simply survival, but reconstruction.
Eusebius succeeded Marcellus for a short time during the continuing struggle over reconciliation. Political instability within the empire was now changing the future of Christianity. Miltiades became Bishop of Rome in the early 4th century, as persecution began to give way to a new political order. He inherited a church that had endured generations of pressure. Then a new emperor appeared, and the political future of Christianity began to change. Constantine was preparing to fight for control of Rome.
Christian tradition remembers Constantine receiving an important sign before his decisive campaign. In the year 312, Constantine defeated his rival and entered Rome victorious.
The victory changed the political landscape of the empire. For the first time, the Bishop of Rome stood before an emperor whose policy toward Christianity was changing. The Church was moving from persecution toward legal recognition.
In 313, Constantine and Licinius agreed on a policy of religious toleration that restored legal rights to Christians.
After generations of persecution, Christians could finally worship openly.
The Roman Church entered a completely new chapter.
Imperial support began transforming the physical landscape of Christian worship. The age of hidden house churches was beginning to give way to monumental Christian buildings. Sylvester I became Bishop of Rome in 314, as Christianity entered a new era of public life. Under Sylvester, the Roman Church lived through the transformation brought by Constantine. The church that had once hidden beneath the streets was now beginning to rise visibly above them.
From Peter's humble community to the age of Constantine, the succession had survived persecution, conflict, and generations of change. The church had survived the empire's persecutions. Now a new question stood before the successors of Peter. What would the church become when it was no longer forbidden?
The church had entered a new age, but the transformation of Rome was only beginning.
Mark became the 34th Bishop of Rome during the brief period following Sylvester. His short pontificate belonged to a church now emerging openly into Roman society.
Christian worship was becoming increasingly visible after generations of persecution.
The church now faced disputes not about survival alone, but about doctrine and ecclesial unity.
Letters carried competing claims across the Christian world. Julius became involved in the controversy surrounding Athanasius of Alexandria. The conflict reflected intense theological and political tensions within the 4th century church. Rome increasingly served as a place where disputed questions could be brought before the Bishop of Rome.
Liberius became the 36th Bishop of Rome during a period of intense theological and political change.
The question of Christ's relationship to the Father divided bishops throughout the empire. Imperial authority increasingly influenced the environment in which bishops debated doctrine. Liberius experienced intense imperial pressure during the theological conflicts of his time.
Historical sources remember Liberius spending a period in exile. Away from Rome, the Bishop of Rome became a symbol of the struggle surrounding ecclesial independence. The Roman community was forced to navigate the consequences of imperial intervention. Eventually, Liberius returned to Rome.
Damasus I became the 37th Bishop of Rome after a disputed succession. The election of Damasus occurred amid serious conflict within the Roman Church. His pontificate helped strengthen the institutional position of the Roman bishop.
Damasus became closely associated with commemorating Christian martyrs in Rome.
Inscriptions preserved the memory of those who had suffered for Christ.
Damasus supported scholarly work connected with the Latin Christian tradition. The study and translation of Scripture became increasingly important in the Latin-speaking church. Siricius became the 38th Bishop of Rome and continued the development of Roman ecclesiastical administration. Siricius is remembered for important correspondence concerning church discipline. Written correspondence increasingly connected Rome with distant churches.
Anastasius I became the 39th Bishop of Rome near the end of the 4th century.
Theological disputes continued to shape the intellectual life of the church. The Christian world was increasingly interconnected, but disagreement remained.
Innocent I became the 40th Bishop of Rome as the Western Roman world entered a period of great change.
Letters helped connect Rome with Christian communities across the wider Mediterranean world.
Questions of doctrine and ecclesiastical authority crossed the Mediterranean.
The empire that had once seemed permanent was beginning to show deep fractures. Zosimus became the 41st Bishop of Rome during a difficult period of ecclesial controversy. The Roman Church continued to respond to disputes extending far beyond Italy. Boniface I succeeded Zosimus after another contested election.
The struggle surrounding his election demonstrated how complicated papal succession had become.
Celestine I became the 43rd Bishop of Rome.
The Roman Church participated actively in major theological controversies of the 5th century.
The controversy surrounding Nestorius raised important questions about Christian teaching concerning Christ.
Church leaders gathered at Ephesus to confront the controversy.
The Council of Ephesus became a major turning point in the Christological debates.
Sixtus III became the 44th Bishop of Rome after the Council of Ephesus.
His pontificate was associated with important developments in the Christian architecture of Rome. The visual language of Christian Rome was becoming increasingly magnificent.
Leo I, remembered as Leo the Great, became the 45th Bishop of Rome. Leo became one of the most influential theological and pastoral voices of the 5th century papacy.
Leo I became known for his teaching and his influential role in the life of the Roman Church.
His letters became important statements in the Church's Christological debates. At Chalcedon, the Church confronted another major controversy concerning the person of Christ. Leo's theological teaching became an important reference point during the council.
Then the political crisis of the Western Roman Empire reached a dramatic point. Ancient sources remember Leo meeting Attila during the crisis of 452. The encounter became one of the most famous episodes associated with Leo's pontificate. The encounter between Roman diplomacy and the forces threatening Italy became part of the historical memory of Leo's pontificate.
Whatever the precise circumstances, Leo's pontificate unfolded as imperial power in the West weakened.
In 455, another invasion threatened Rome. Ancient sources associate Leo with an attempt to protect Rome's people during the Vandal attack.
The city could no longer rely on the old imperial structures for security.
The Bishop of Rome was increasingly becoming a visible figure of continuity in a changing world.
Hilarius became the 46th Bishop of Rome after Leo the Great.
His pontificate continued the development of Roman ecclesiastical institutions.
Simplicius became Bishop of Rome as the Western Roman Empire approached a historic transition.
She was carpal counterlands. The political world surrounding Rome was changing faster than ever.
In 476, the traditional date for the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Odoacer became ruler of Italy. The empire in the West had disappeared, but the Church remained. Felix III became the 48th Bishop of Rome during a period of intense conflict between Rome and Constantinople.
The Church now faced divisions between the Latin West and Greek East.
The controversy revealed the growing complexity of relations between Rome and Constantinople.
Gelasius I became the 49th Bishop of Rome.
Gelasius is remembered especially for his reflections on spiritual and temporal authority.
His thought contributed to the long Christian discussion about the responsibilities of rulers and bishops. Anastasius II became the 50th Bishop of Rome. He sought a more conciliatory approach toward the Eastern Church. Symmachus succeeded Anastasius II after another disputed papal election. The resulting schism demonstrated how political interests could affect papal elections. The conflict became intertwined with wider questions about the independence of the papacy. Hormisdas became the 52nd Bishop of Rome and inherited the unresolved division with Constantinople. Diplomatic negotiations gradually moved toward reconciliation between Christian communities.
The Church's unity required patience, correspondence, and negotiation across enormous distances. John I became the 53rd Bishop of Rome.
John I lived under the rule of Theodoric, the Ostrogothic king of Italy.
Theodoric sent John on a diplomatic mission to Constantinople.
John entered the eastern capital at a moment of significant religious and political tension. The mission required delicate negotiation between religious and political authorities.
After returning to Italy, John fell under the suspicion of Theodoric.
He died soon afterward in Ravenna.
Felix IV became the 51st Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate belonged to a period when Rome was rebuilding its Christian identity after imperial collapse. Boniface II became the 55th Bishop of Rome. The election again revealed the political complexity surrounding the papacy. His pontificate was brief, but belonged to a church increasingly shaped by the post-imperial world. Agapetus I became the 57th Bishop of Rome. Agapetus traveled to Constantinople during a major theological and political dispute. The Pope confronted tensions surrounding the Eastern Church while defending Roman theological positions.
His visit demonstrated the close connection between Rome and the Byzantine Christian world.
Silverius became the 58th Bishop of Rome during the Gothic War. Rome became a battlefield between the Ostrogoths and the forces of Emperor Justinian. The position of the Bishop of Rome became increasingly connected with the political struggles surrounding Italy. Vigilius succeeded Silverius amid the continuing Gothic War. His pontificate became closely connected with the religious policies of Emperor Justinian. Justinian sought theological unity throughout the empire while intervening deeply in church affairs.
The imperial court, including Empress Theodora, played an important role in the religious politics of the period. Vigilius found himself caught between Eastern imperial pressure and Western expectations.
Rome itself was suffering from years of warfare. The Pope's difficult years unfolded against the background of a city deeply affected by war. The controversy surrounding the three chapters deepened the division between different Christian communities. The Second Council of Constantinople attempted to resolve the controversy.
Vigilius faced difficult theological decisions during the major controversies of his pontificate.
Pelagius I became the 60th Bishop of Rome after the death of Vigilius. He inherited a city and church deeply affected by decades of conflict.
John III became the 61st Bishop of Rome.
The Roman Church continued its pastoral life despite political instability.
Benedict I became Bishop of Rome as the Lombard invasion brought another crisis.
The Lombard expansion placed enormous pressure on communities across Italy. The Church increasingly became a source of practical assistance for a suffering population. Pelagius II became the 63rd Bishop of Rome during another period of Lombard pressure. The survival of Rome increasingly depended on local leadership and charity. The papacy was becoming more directly involved in the practical defense and survival of Rome. Then came Gregory, one of the most influential figures in the history of the papacy.
Gregory had served as a Roman administrator before embracing religious life. He embraced monastic life and became deeply devoted to prayer and study. In 590, Gregory became the sixth bishop of Rome. He responded to famine and hardship with organized relief.
The Roman Church increasingly organized practical assistance for communities in need.
Gregory maintained an enormous correspondence with churches, rulers, missionaries, and clergy. His letters connected Rome with a rapidly changing Christian Europe. Gregory supported missionary work that helped carry Christianity toward Anglo-Saxon England. Augustine and his companions carried the Christian mission northward. The mission would become one of the most important missionary initiatives associated with Gregory's pontificate. Gregory combined administration with a deep concern for pastoral care. His writings influenced Christian thought for centuries. His pastoral writings addressed the responsibilities of bishops, priests, and Christian communities. Later Christian tradition strongly associated Gregory's name with Roman liturgical music. The musical tradition, later called Gregorian chant, became one of the enduring symbols of Western Christianity. For Gregory, leadership meant serving a wounded population. His correspondence also reveals the growing diplomatic role of the Bishop of Rome. Political instability required the papacy to navigate relationships with powerful rulers. In his final years, Gregory continued governing a church surrounded by political uncertainty, war, and pastoral need. Even as his health declined, Gregory continued writing to churches and rulers across the Christian world. His final years were marked by prayer, illness, and continued service. His writings would outlive the political world in which he served. Gregory died in Rome in 604, after nearly 14 years as Bishop of Rome. The Roman Church mourned Gregory, remembered by later generations as Gregory the Great. Sabinian became the fifth Bishop of Rome in 604. His brief pontificate unfolded during continued hardship and food shortages. The Church's role in feeding the population had become increasingly important. Boniface III became the 66th Bishop of Rome. His brief pontificate included important relations with the Byzantine Emperor. Boniface IV became the 7th Bishop of Rome. Boniface IV received the ancient pantheon and dedicated it as a Christian church. An ancient symbol of Roman religion was given a new Christian purpose. Deus Dedit, also known as Adeodatus I, became the 68th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate continued the Roman Church's ministry of charity. Boniface V became the 9th Bishop of Rome. The papacy continued its pastoral work,
among a population facing political and economic uncertainty.
Honorius I became the 70th Bishop of Rome in 625. His pontificate became connected with the growing theological controversy over Christ's will and action. The debate that would become known as monothelitism increasingly divided Christian leaders. Severinus became the 71st Bishop of Rome after a prolonged delay in his recognition. His extremely brief pontificate unfolded amid tensions between Rome and Byzantine political authorities. John IV became the 72nd Bishop of Rome. He became known for responding to suffering caused by invasions and displacement. Theodore I became the 73rd Bishop of Rome. The theological controversy over Christ's will continued to challenge the unity of the Church. Martin I became the 74th Bishop of Rome and took a firm position against monothelitism. Martin convened a council in Rome to address important theological questions concerning the Christian faith. Imperial authorities eventually arrested Martin and transported him away from Rome.
He died in exile, remembered as a witness to the Church's struggle over doctrine and authority.
Eugene I became the 75th Bishop of Rome during the continuing theological conflict. Vitalian became the 76th Bishop of Rome during a period of changing relations between Rome and Constantinople. His pontificate helped open a new period of communication between Rome and the Byzantine Christian world. Adeodatus II became the 77th Bishop of Rome during a period of continuing political and ecclesial uncertainty. Donus became the 78th Bishop of Rome and continued the pastoral life of the Roman Church.
Agatho became the 79th Bishop of Rome as the controversy over Christ's will approached a decisive council.
Agatho's teaching and correspondence helped prepare the Roman response to the Great Council at Constantinople. The ancient controversy.
After Agatho, Leo II became the 80th Bishop of Rome.
Leo II continued the Roman Church's response to the theological controversies of the previous generation.
The decisions of the Great Council in Constantinople were now shaping the Church's future.
The brief pontificate of this early Roman bishop opened a new chapter for the Church after the great councils of the previous generation.
Benedict II became the 81st Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate continued the gradual strengthening of communication between Rome and Constantinople. The pastoral mission of the Roman Church continued amid political uncertainty. The papacy was entering a new century shaped by both continuity and change.
John V became the 82nd Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate continued the Church's administrative and pastoral work. The Roman Church remained responsible for both spiritual ministry and practical assistance.
Conon became the 83rd Bishop of Rome. His brief pontificate came during a period of political transition in Italy. The ancient city continued to depend increasingly upon its local Christian institutions.
Sergius I became the 81st Bishop of Rome.
Sergius became closely associated with the liturgical life of the Roman Church.
Roman Christian worship
became increasingly visible through solemn public processions. Theological disputes continued to place Rome and Constantinople under pressure. He remained committed to the Roman Church's theological tradition. The relationship between the papacy and the Byzantine Empire remained complex. John VI became the 85th Bishop of Rome. Italy remained divided among competing political powers, creating difficult circumstances for the Roman Church. The Lombard presence continued to shape the political landscape of Italy. The Church increasingly became a refuge for communities affected by conflict. John VII became the 86th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate was associated with the continued development of Christian art in Rome. Sacred art helped communicate the Christian faith to generations of worshippers. Rome's churches became living witnesses to the continuity of Christian tradition. Sicinius became the 87th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate lasted only a few weeks. Even during a very brief pontificate, the needs of Rome's churches remained constant. Constantine became the 88th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate unfolded during an important period of change in Byzantine politics. Constantine traveled to Constantinople for an important diplomatic meeting with Emperor Justinian II. The meeting between Constantine and Justinian II demonstrated the continuing importance of relations between Rome and Constantinople. He returned to Rome as the political landscape of the Mediterranean continued to change. Gregory II became the 89th Bishop of Rome. His long pontificate brought the papacy into a new period of political transformation. Relations between Rome and Byzantine authority became increasingly strained. Gregory resisted aspects of imperial religious policy that he believed threatened the Church. At the same time, the Roman Church looked beyond Italy toward the Christianization of Northern Europe. The missionary Boniface became one of the most important figures connected with Gregory II's support. Missionary work was expanding the boundaries of Western Christianity. Rome increasingly became a center from which missionary efforts were coordinated. The Christian world was expanding far beyond the borders of the old Roman Empire. Gregory III became the 90th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate unfolded during increasing Lombard pressure on Roman territories. The political survival of Rome became an increasingly urgent concern. Diplomacy became an essential part of the papacy's response. The papacy also began looking toward the Franks for political support. A new political relationship was beginning to emerge in Western Europe. Zachary became the 91st Bishop of Rome. Zachary inherited a church deeply involved in the political transformation of Europe. Relations between Rome and the Franks
became increasingly important.
The missionary work supported by Rome continued to strengthen Christian communities north of the Alps.
The papacy's influence was increasingly expressed through letters, councils, and missionary networks.
Stephen II became the 92nd Bishop of Rome. The Lombard threat to Rome had reached a critical point.
Stephen sought assistance from the Frankish ruler Pepin. The meeting strengthened the developing alliance between the papacy and the Frankish monarchy.
The alliance would reshape the political map of Western Europe.
The relationship between Rome and the Frankish kingdom was entering a new political era.
Paul I became the 93rd Bishop of Rome.
Paul continued the political and pastoral work begun during his brother Stephen's pontificate.
Rome now stood between the Byzantine world and the rising power of the Franks. The preservation of Christian heritage remained an important responsibility of the Roman Church.
Stephen III became the 94th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate was marked by serious internal disputes within the Frankish and Roman political world.
The Roman Church sought to establish order amid competing political claims.
The papacy's political importance was growing, but so were the challenges surrounding it. Adrian I became the 95th Bishop of Rome.
His long pontificate became one of the most important in the development of the medieval papacy. The Frankish king Charlemagne was becoming the papacy's most powerful political ally. Adrian strengthened the alliance between Rome and the Frankish kingdom. Charlemagne intervened against the Lombard kingdom.
The fall of the Lombard kingdom transformed the balance of power in Italy. The restoration of Rome's churches became an important part of the Church's continuing mission.
The physical restoration of Rome became part of the papacy's long-term mission.
Letters kept the political and religious alliance connected across vast distances.
The relationship between Rome and Charlemagne would shape the future of Western Europe.
The papacy was no longer merely surviving the collapse of the ancient world. It was helping shape the medieval one.
Leo XIII became the 96th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate unfolded during one of the most important periods in the development of the medieval papacy.
Political opposition inside Rome placed Leo III in serious danger.
After seeking protection, Leo traveled to the Frankish kingdom and appealed to Charlemagne for support. Charlemagne became central to the resolution of the Roman crisis. Their alliance would reshape the political order of Western Europe. The Pope returned to Rome under the protection of the Frankish ruler. Rome prepared for a moment that would transform European history.
On Christmas Day in the year 800, Charlemagne came to St. Peter's Basilica.
The Pope and the Frankish ruler stood together at the heart of Western Christendom.
The ceremony became one of the defining symbols of the medieval relationship between papacy and empire. In the year 800, the Roman ceremony surrounding the Frankish ruler became one of the defining moments of medieval European history.
The coronation would echo across European history for centuries. A new imperial age was being proclaimed in the Christian West. The event permanently changed the political symbolism surrounding the papacy.
Yet the Pope's political challenges were far from over.
The alliance with the Carolingians brought both protection and new political responsibilities.
Charlemagne now stood at the center of Western European political power. The papacy and the Frankish monarchy were now bound together by a new political order.
For the Church, the new empire was also a new environment for evangelization and governance.
Christian communities continued to expand across Europe. Monasteries became centers of learning, prayer, and manuscript preservation.
The spiritual and intellectual foundations of medieval Europe were taking shape.
The papacy also continued to preserve and transmit Christian teaching.
The Church that had survived the Roman Empire was now helping build a different civilization.
For Leo XIII, the authority of the papacy remained inseparable from its spiritual mission.
Charity remained at the heart of Christian life. The physical city also required constant restoration. The sound of Christian worship increasingly defined the rhythm of Rome.
The relationship between Rome and the Carolingian world continued to develop.
Correspondence connected distant centers of Christian authority. The papacy now carried memories of the apostles, the martyrs, and the Christian emperors. 7 centuries after Peter, the world around Rome had changed almost beyond recognition. Yet the Church continued to understand itself as part of one continuous Christian story. The memory of the apostles remained at the center of Roman Christian identity. Generation after generation, the bishops of Rome inherited both a spiritual legacy and a demanding responsibility. The story of the papacy was becoming inseparable from the history of Europe. From the ruins of the Western Empire, a new Christian political world had emerged. The Roman Church stood at the threshold of a new medieval world. Stephen IV became the 97th Bishop of Rome.
The papacy continued its close relationship with the Carolingian world.
His pontificate included a journey into the Frankish realm.
The papacy remained deeply involved in the political order created by Charlemagne and his successors.
Paschal I became the 98th Bishop of Rome.
Paschal became closely associated with the restoration and decoration of churches in Rome.
Sacred art flourished as Roman churches were renewed.
The renewed churches preserved the memory of earlier Christian generations.
Eugene II became the 99th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate unfolded within the political framework of the Carolingian Empire. The Church continued to develop systems of Christian education.
Valentine became the 100th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was extraordinarily brief.
Even brief pontificates formed links in the long chain of Roman succession.
Gregory IV became the 101st Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was shaped by the continuing influence of the Carolingian Empire. Political divisions within the empire increasingly affected the papacy.
Rome had become part of a political and Christian world much larger than Italy. Sergius II became the 102nd Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate began during a period of increasing external threats.
The 9th century brought new military threats to Rome and the Italian coast.
The Church again found itself responding to a crisis affecting the city's survival.
Leo XIV became the 103rd Bishop of Rome.
Leo IV responded to the threat by strengthening Rome's defenses.
The defensive project would become an enduring part of Rome's medieval landscape.
The Pope's responsibility now included the physical protection of the Christian city.
Benedict III became the 104th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate continued the complex relationship between Rome and the Carolingian rulers.
Nicholas I became the 105th Bishop of Rome.
Nicholas became one of the most influential medieval popes in the development of papal authority.
His correspondence extended the influence of Rome across Western Christianity. Relations between Rome and Constantinople again became deeply contested. The disputes revealed growing differences between the Latin West and Greek East. The distance between the two great Christian centers was becoming increasingly significant.
Adrian II became the 106th Bishop of Rome.
He inherited difficult relations between Rome, Constantinople, and the Frankish kingdoms.
The missionary work of Cyril and Methodius brought Christianity and liturgical questions into the heart of Central Europe.
Their mission became closely connected with the wider Christian world, overseen by Rome.
John VIII became the 107th Bishop of Rome.
His long pontificate unfolded during a period of growing instability in Italy and Europe.
The Pope relied heavily on diplomacy to protect Rome. Marinus I became the 108th Bishop of Rome. Adrian III became the 109th Bishop of Rome. His extremely brief pontificate ended during a journey north of Rome.
Stephen V became the 110th Bishop of Rome.
Before becoming Pope, Formosus had already served as an important papal representative in the ecclesiastical affairs of Western Europe.
Formosus became the 111th Bishop of Rome in 891.
His pontificate unfolded during intense political struggles over the future of Italy. Boniface VI became the 112th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate lasted only a few weeks. Stephen VI became the 113th Bishop of Rome during a period of intense political uncertainty. Political factionalism increasingly dominated the Roman papacy. Romanus became the 114th Bishop of Rome.
Theodore II became the 150th Bishop of Rome during an extremely brief pontificate.
John IX became the 116th Bishop of Rome.
John IX sought to restore order after the political conflicts surrounding the papacy.
Benedict IV became the 117th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate continued the pastoral mission of the Roman Church amid political instability.
Leo V became the 108th Bishop of Rome.
Sergius III became the 119th Bishop of Rome.
Anastasius III became the 120th Bishop of Rome. His short pontificate unfolded during a politically complicated period in Rome.
The Roman Church remained connected with the wider Christian world through correspondence and diplomacy.
After Anastasius, another brief pontificate continued the long succession of the bishops of Rome.
Lando became the 121st Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was extremely brief. Even brief pontificates formed links in the continuing history of the Roman Church.
The papacy now entered a period of increasingly complex Roman politics. John X became the 122nd Bishop of Rome.
John X became closely involved in the political affairs surrounding Rome and Italy.
The political divisions of Italy continued to influence the life of the papacy.
Diplomacy remained essential to protecting the Church's position.
Leo VI became the 123rd Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate lasted only a short time. The succession continued rapidly during this turbulent period.
Stephen VII became the 124th Bishop of Rome.
The Roman Church continued to navigate difficult political circumstances. The papacy remained a spiritual institution within a highly political city.
Another transition soon followed.
John XI became the 125th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate unfolded during a period when powerful Roman families strongly influenced public life. Political influence surrounding the papacy continued to shape Rome.
The Church continued forward, despite the instability surrounding it.
Leo XII became the 126th Bishop of Rome. Leo XII sought stability for the Roman Church during a difficult political period. Diplomacy and ecclesiastical cooperation remained important tools. Monastic communities continued preserving Christian learning throughout Europe.
Stephen VIII became the 127th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate unfolded during continuing political uncertainty.
The succession of Roman bishops continued through another generation.
Marinus II became the 128th Bishop of Rome.
Marinus II served during a period of growing political consolidation in Rome.
The Church continued maintaining its spiritual and administrative traditions. The 10th century papacy was approaching another important transition. Agapetus II became the 129th Bishop of Rome.
Agapetus II served during a period of increasing political influence around the Roman Church.
The liturgical and pastoral life of Rome continued despite political pressures.
The papacy was moving toward one of the most turbulent chapters of the 10th century.
John XII became the 130th Bishop of Rome. John XII became Pope during a period of intense political competition in Rome.
The relationship between the papacy and the German kingdom became increasingly important. The intervention of the imperial court reshaped the political relationship between the papacy and the empire.
Leo XIII became the 130th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate unfolded amid a disputed political transition in Rome. The complex succession of the 10th century left a lasting mark on papal history. Another brief pontificate followed.
Benedict V became the 132nd Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was extremely brief and unfolded during a contested political period. Even short pontificates remain part of the continuous record of the Roman Church.
The papacy continued into another generation.
John XIII became the 133rd Bishop of Rome. John XIII sought to strengthen the Church's position within the changing political order.
The development of Christian institutions continued alongside political change.
The succession moved forward once again.
Benedict VI became the 134th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate unfolded amid powerful political rivalries within Rome.
The Church continued its spiritual mission despite the instability surrounding its leadership.
Another successor would soon take responsibility for the Roman Church.
Benedict VII became the 135th Bishop of Rome. Benedict VII served during a period of relative stability compared with some preceding years.
Christian learning and ecclesiastical administration continued to develop.
The papacy continued its long journey through the 10th century. John XIV became the 136th Bishop of Rome.
John XIV served during another period of political uncertainty. Correspondence remained an essential link between Rome and distant churches.
Succession continued.
John V became the 137th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate took place during a period of increasing interaction between Rome and European rulers. The preservation of Christian learning remained central to the Church's mission.
A new millennium was approaching.
Gregory V became the 138th Bishop of Rome. Gregory V was closely connected with the emerging imperial order of Otto III. The papacy and empire were becoming closely connected at the turn of the millennium. Europe entered a new millennium, with Rome at the center of Christian memory. Sylvester II became the 139th Bishop of Rome. Before becoming Pope, Sylvester II was renowned for his learning and intellectual interests. His pontificate became associated with learning and the intellectual culture of the medieval church. The Christian intellectual world continued expanding beyond Rome. John XVII became the 140th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate lasted only a few months. The rapid succession of the period continued.
Another successor soon followed.
John VIII became the 141st Bishop of Rome. John VIII served during a period when Rome remained closely connected with powerful local families. The Church continued its pastoral and administrative responsibilities. Papacy moved toward another brief pontificate. Sergius IV became the 142nd Bishop of Rome.
Sergius IV served during a period of political transition in Rome.
The spiritual life of Rome continued, despite the political challenges surrounding the papacy. A longer and more influential pontificate would soon begin. Benedict XIII became the 143rd Bishop of Rome.
Benedict XIII strengthened the relationship between the papacy and the empire.
The political alliance helped shape the future of medieval Western Europe.
The papacy continued balancing spiritual responsibilities with political realities.
John XIX became the 144th Bishop of Rome.
John XIX continued the close relationship between Rome and the imperial world. The intellectual and administrative life of the Church continued to develop. The papacy now entered one of the most controversial successions of the 11th century. Benedict IX became the 145th Bishop of Rome. His first pontificate became part of a highly complicated period in Roman political history. Powerful Roman families continued to influence the papal succession.
The succession soon became even more complicated.
Sylvester III became the 146th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate was extremely brief and occurred amid intense political competition.
The papal succession returned once again to Benedict IX.
Benedict IX returned as the 147th Bishop of Rome.
The papacy remained caught within a complicated Roman political environment. The crisis of succession would soon lead to another remarkable chapter.
Gregory VI became the 148th Bishop of Rome. Gregory VI became associated with the attempt to resolve the complicated papal succession. Wider Christian political world became involved in the Roman succession crisis.
A major turning point was approaching. Clement II became the 149th Bishop of Rome. Clement II began a reforming phase in the history of the papacy.
The reform of ecclesiastical life was becoming increasingly important.
The reform movement would continue through the next succession.
Benedict IX returned for a third period as the 150th Bishop of Rome.
The repeated succession reflected the extraordinary political instability surrounding Rome.
Beyond the politics of Rome, Christian communities continued their daily life of worship.
A new reforming era was beginning.
Damasus II became the 151st Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate lasted only a few weeks.
Despite its brevity, his pontificate formed another link in the reforming history of the papacy.
The reform movement would soon gain a major leader.
Leo IX became the 152nd Bishop of Rome.
Leo IX became one of the central figures of the 11th century reform movement.
The papacy increasingly worked to strengthen discipline and reform within the Church.
Councils and ecclesiastical discussions became important instruments of reform.
Relations between the Latin West and Greek East were also becoming increasingly complex.
The Christian world stood at an important crossroads.
Victor II became the 153rd Bishop of Rome.
Victor II continued the reform program associated with Leo IX. Reform required cooperation among bishops, clergy, and rulers. The reform movement continued to mature.
Stephen IX became the 154th Bishop of Rome. Stephen IX continued the reforming direction of the papacy. The Reform movement was closely connected with monasteries and centers of learning.
A new generation of reformers was emerging.
Nicholas II became the 155th Bishop of Rome. Nicholas II became an important figure in the continuing reform of papal elections.
The Reform movement sought to reduce outside political influence over the papal succession.
The organization of papal authority was entering a new phase. The next generation would carry the Reform movement even further. Alexander II became the 156th Bishop of Rome. Alexander II continued the reforming tradition established by his predecessors. The Reform movement was spreading through the wider Latin Christian world. The Reform era was approaching one of its most influential papal figures. Gregory VII became the 157th Bishop of Rome. Gregory VII became one of the most influential figures in the medieval reform of the papacy. The Reform movement sought to strengthen the spiritual authority and independence of the Church. The relationship between spiritual and political authority became increasingly important. Letters became powerful instruments in the reforming papacy. The Reform movement also relied upon networks of monasteries and learned clergy.
The struggle over the boundaries of church and political authority would shape the next generation.
Victor III became the 158th Bishop of Rome.
Victor III came from a strong monastic tradition.
Monastic spirituality remained deeply connected with the reform of the Church. The Reform movement was now ready for another major chapter. Urban II became the 115th Bishop of Rome. Urban II inherited a church shaped by decades of reform. Urban II worked to strengthen connections among the churches of Western Europe.
Councils became important places for communicating the direction of the Church.
Pilgrimage remained an important expression of medieval Christian devotion. Monasteries and churches provided places of prayer, hospitality, and learning. Urban II worked to strengthen communication among Christian communities in Western Europe. The papacy's network of communication continued to expand.
The Reform movement was becoming a broader renewal of Christian life.
Written correspondence helped preserve the decisions and teachings of the Reform era. The influence of the Roman Church now reached across a rapidly changing Europe. The papacy was increasingly becoming a central coordinating institution within Western Christianity. Christian pilgrimage connected distant regions of Europe. At the heart of the Reform movement remained the worship and spiritual life of the Church. The Bishop of Rome was increasingly seen as a guardian of unity within Western Christianity.
Learning, discipline, and spiritual renewal became closely connected.
The reform of the papacy was also changing the wider Christian landscape.
From the troubled 10th century, the papacy had entered a new reforming age.
From Anastasius III to Urban II, the succession continued through decades of political and ecclesiastical transformation.
Each pontificate became another link in the long history of the Roman Church.
By the end of the 11th century, the papacy had become a major force in the religious life of Western Europe.
The story of the popes continued, carrying the memory of Peter into a new age of Christian Europe. He became the 160th Bishop of Rome. Paschal II inherited a papacy shaped by decades of ecclesiastical reform.
His pontificate continued the effort to strengthen the Church's authority and organization. The papacy entered the 12th century facing new political and ecclesiastical challenges. Gelasius II became the 161st Bishop of Rome. His pontificate was brief and unfolded during serious political uncertainty.
The continuity of the Church was preserved through its clergy and institutions. The papacy soon entered another important transition. Calixtus II became the 162nd Bishop of Rome. Calixtus II worked toward greater stability between the Church and secular authorities. The Reform movement continued to shape the organization of the medieval Church.
The 12th century papacy was entering a period of greater institutional development.
Honorius II became the 163rd Bishop of Rome.
Honorius II governed during a period of competing political interests. The papacy continued developing its administrative and pastoral structures. Another contested succession would soon challenge the unity of the Roman Church. Innocent II became the 164th Bishop of Rome. His election unfolded during a period of serious ecclesiastical division. Despite disputes among leaders, ordinary Christian worship continued across Europe.
The Church continued seeking unity through councils and ecclesiastical dialogue.
Celestine II became the 165th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was extremely brief. Even brief pontificates remained part of the continuous history of the papacy. Another successor soon continued the story. Lucius II became the 166th Bishop of Rome. Lucius II served during a period of political unrest in Rome.
The spiritual mission of the Church continued, despite political tensions.
The papacy soon entered another significant chapter.
Eugene III became the 167th Bishop of Rome.
Eugene III came from a strong monastic tradition. His pontificate continued the close relationship between monastic spirituality and church reform. The reforming spirit of the Church continued to spread.
Anastasius IV became the 168th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was brief, but continued the institutional development of the papacy.
Church buildings and institutions continued to develop throughout medieval Europe.
A new and historically significant pontificate was approaching.
Adrian IV became the 169th Bishop of Rome.
Adrian IV was the only Englishman to become Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate unfolded amid complex relationships between Rome, European rulers, and the wider church.
The papacy was becoming increasingly connected across Europe. Alexander III became the 170th Bishop of Rome.
Alexander III faced a long period of ecclesiastical and political division. The unity of the Western Church became a central concern. The papacy and European political powers entered a complicated period of negotiation. Lucius III became the 171st Bishop of Rome. Lucius III continued the effort to strengthen ecclesiastical discipline. The Church increasingly emphasized clear teaching and organized pastoral structures. Another brief pontificate would soon follow. Urban III became the 172nd Bishop of Rome. Urban III served during a period of continued political and ecclesiastical tension. The papacy continued to rely on networks of clergy and monasteries. The 12th century was approaching another major turning point.
Gregory VIII became the 173rd Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate lasted only a few weeks. The rapid succession reflected the uncertainty of the period. Another successor soon continued the papal story.
Clement III became the 174th Bishop of Rome.
Clement III served during a period of complex political relationships surrounding Rome. The papacy continued developing systems of administration and communication.
The Church was approaching another important succession. Celestine III became the 175th Bishop of Rome.
Celestine III served during a period of expanding papal influence.
Pilgrimage and Christian devotion continued to connect distant communities. The 12th century was drawing toward one of its most influential pontificates. Innocent III became the 176th Bishop of Rome.
He became one of the most influential leaders of the medieval church. The papacy expanded its influence over ecclesiastical affairs throughout Western Europe.
The Church's institutions and networks continued to grow. Papal correspondence connected Rome with bishops, rulers, monasteries, and Christian communities.
The influence of the papacy reached a new height at the beginning of the 13th century.
Honorius III became the 177th Bishop of Rome. Honorius III continued the institutional legacy of his predecessor. The papacy supported religious communities and continued its pastoral work. The intellectual and spiritual life of Europe continued to develop. Gregory IX became the 178th Bishop of Rome. Gregory IX became closely associated with the development of canon law. The intellectual institutions of the medieval church continued to expand. The 13th century brought new intellectual and institutional developments.
Celestine IV became the 179th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate lasted only a few weeks. The Church continued its succession despite the brevity of his pontificate. A longer pontificate would soon begin. Innocent IV became the 180th Bishop of Rome. Innocent IV governed during a period of major political and ecclesiastical tensions. The papacy continued diplomatic communication with rulers and Christian communities. The papal institution remained deeply connected to the political landscape of Europe. The development of canon law continued to influence church administration. Councils continued to provide a forum for important ecclesiastical decisions. Alexander IV became the 181st Bishop of Rome. Alexander IV continued the work of the papacy during a changing European landscape. The intellectual life of medieval Christianity continued to flourish. The Church's educational institutions were becoming increasingly important. Urban IV became the 182nd Bishop of Rome. Urban IV served during a period of political transformation in Europe. The liturgical life of the Church continued to develop. Another chapter of the 13th century papacy soon followed.
Clement IV became the 183rd Bishop of Rome.
Clement IV governed during a period of significant political change. Diplomatic correspondence remained an essential part of papal administration. The papacy entered a prolonged period without a new pope. After Clement IV, the Church experienced a long period without a newly elected pope. In Bangla's Jattis. The prolonged election revealed the complexity of medieval papal politics. The Church waited for a new leader as Europe continued to change. After years of uncertainty, the papal succession finally moved forward.
Gregory X became the 184th Bishop of Rome.
Gregory X became associated with efforts to strengthen church unity and reform. The Second Council of Lyon
became an important moment in the history of his pontificate.
The Church continued seeking greater unity and clearer ecclesiastical structures.
Innocent V became the 185th Bishop of Rome.
Innocent V came from the Dominican intellectual tradition.
Learning and theological study remained important parts of medieval church life.
Another very brief pontificate followed.
Adrian V became the 186th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate lasted only a few weeks.
The short succession once again demonstrated the uncertainty of the period. The Church soon welcomed another successor. John XXI became the 187th Bishop of Rome.
John XXI was associated with scholarship and intellectual study. The medieval papacy remained connected with the intellectual world of universities and scholars.
Knowledge and theology continued to shape medieval Christian culture. Nicholas III became the 188th Bishop of Rome.
Nicholas III served during a period of complex relationships between the papacy and European powers.
The organization of papal administration continued to develop. The 13th century was approaching another major succession. Martin IV became the 189th Bishop of Rome.
Martin IV governed during a period of significant political change in Europe.
Diplomacy remained central to the papacy's relationships with European rulers. Another succession soon continued the story of the medieval papacy. Honorius IV became the 190th Bishop of Rome.
Honorius IV served during a period of continued political transformation. The papacy continued its administrative and pastoral responsibilities.
The papal succession moved forward once again.
Nicholas IV became the 191st Bishop of Rome. The find. Nicholas IV came from the Franciscan tradition.
The spiritual traditions of religious orders continued to influence the wider church. The 13th century was approaching another extraordinary papal election.
Celestine V became the 192nd Bishop of Rome. Before his election, he had lived a deeply ascetic and secluded life.
His election brought a hermit into the center of medieval papal life.
His brief pontificate became one of the most unusual episodes in papal history.
After a brief pontificate, the Church faced another important transition.
Boniface VIII became the 193rd Bishop of Rome.
He became one of the most influential leaders of the medieval church. His pontificate was marked by complex relationships between papal authority and European political power. armies. The Jubilee tradition brought renewed attention to Rome as a center of Christian pilgrimage. At the turn of the 14th century, Rome remained a major destination for Christian pilgrims.
Benedict XI became the 194th Bishop of Rome. Benedict XI came from the Dominican tradition.
His pontificate was brief and came during a period of transition for the papacy. The papacy was approaching a major geographical transformation.
He became the 195th Bishop of Rome.
Clement V began a period in which the papal court was based in Avignon. The administration of the papacy increasingly operated from southern France.
The papacy entered a new chapter in its relationship with France and Europe.
John XXII became the 196th Bishop of Rome. John XXII presided over a long and intellectually active pontificate.
Theological debates and ecclesiastical scholarship remained important during his pontificate. The Avignon period continued to shape the history of the papacy. Benedict XII became the 197th Bishop of Rome. Benedict XII came from a Cistercian background and continued ecclesiastical reform.
Monastic discipline and church administration remained important concerns.
The Avignon papacy continued into another generation.
Clement VI became the 198th Bishop of Rome.
Clement VI continued the Avignon period of the papacy.
The papal court remained an important center of administration, diplomacy, and learning.
The city surrounding the papal court became an important center of medieval Christian life.
Innocent VI became the 199th Bishop of Rome.
Innocent VI continued the Avignon period after Clement VI.
His administration focused on strengthening order and governance within the Church.
The papacy remained deeply involved in the religious and political affairs of Europe.
The story of the papacy was moving toward another major transformation. Across Europe, Christian communities remained connected through pilgrimage, worship, and correspondence. The succession of the bishops of Rome continued to form an unbroken historical record. Rome and Avignon remained central reference points in the history of the medieval papacy. The spiritual mission of the Church continued through changing political circumstances. From the 12th century into the 14th, the papacy had passed through profound transformation. 40 successive pontificates had carried the story from Paschal II to Innocent VI. The long succession continued to connect each generation of the Roman Church. The story now moved forward toward the next chapter of the papacy.
From Paschal II to Innocent VI, the papacy continued its long journey through the changing history of Christian Europe.
Urban V became the 200th Bishop of Rome.
Urban V
continued the papacy during the later period of the Avignon era. His administration sought greater order within the Church. The papacy was gradually turning its attention toward Rome once again. The connection between the papacy and Rome remained central to the Church's history. Gregory XI became the 201st Bishop of Rome. Gregory XI continued the effort to restore the papacy's presence in Rome.
The papacy made a significant temporary return to Rome during this period, reinforcing the citadel's importance in the history of the Church.
The papacy entered a new and challenging chapter.
The city once again became the principal setting of papal life.
Urban VI became the 202nd Bishop of Rome. His election came at a moment of intense uncertainty within the Church.
After the election of Urban VI, serious disagreement gradually developed over the papal succession.
These divisions developed into the period later known as the Western Schism. Christian communities faced a difficult period of competing claims to papal authority. Boniface IX became the 203rd Bishop of Rome. Boniface IX continued the Roman line of the papacy during the Western Schism. Rome continued to attract pilgrims despite the division within Western Christianity.
The divided papacy remained one of the greatest challenges facing the medieval Church.
The search for unity continued across Christian Europe. Innocent VII became the 204th Bishop of Rome. His brief pontificate unfolded during the continuing Western Schism. Efforts toward reconciliation continued despite the division. The Church continued searching for a path toward unity. Gregory XII became the 205th Bishop of Rome. Gregory XII became part of the effort to resolve the Western Schism. The need for a united Church increasingly encouraged diplomatic negotiations. The Church moved toward a decisive council.
The Council of Constance became a decisive stage in the effort to restore unity to the Western Church.
Martin V became the 206th Bishop of Rome. At the Council of Constance, Martin V was elected, and the divided Western Church moved toward renewed unity. The papacy began rebuilding its institutions after decades of division. Rome entered a new period of reconstruction. The restoration of Rome became an important part of the renewed papal era.
Eugene IV became the 207th Bishop of Rome.
Eugene IV governed during renewed debates over church councils and papal authority. The Church continued searching for a balance between councils and papal leadership. The 15th century brought major intellectual and cultural changes.
Humanist scholarship increasingly influenced the cultural environment surrounding the papacy.
Nicholas V became the 208th Bishop of Rome. Nicholas V became closely associated with the cultural revival of Rome. The papal court supported scholarship, libraries, and the preservation of important texts. Rome was gradually becoming a major center of Renaissance culture. Art and architecture increasingly shaped the appearance of the papal city. Calixtus III became the 209th Bishop of Rome. The papacy also remained concerned with the changing political and religious landscape of Europe. The defense of Christian communities remained an important concern of the period. Europe stood at the meeting point of major cultural and political changes.
The papacy continued its spiritual mission amid a changing world.
Pius II became the 210th Bishop of Rome.
Pius II was closely associated with Renaissance humanist culture. The intellectual world of the Renaissance continued to influence church culture.
The relationship between faith, scholarship, and Renaissance culture continued to develop.
Rome remained a major destination for Christian pilgrimage.
Paul II became the 211th Bishop of Rome.
Paul II continued the papacy during a period of cultural and institutional development. Rome continued to grow as a center of art, scholarship, and Christian life. The Renaissance papacy was entering another significant period.
Sixtus IV became the 212th Bishop of Rome.
Sixtus IV became associated with major artistic and architectural developments in Rome.
The papal patronage of Renaissance art reached extraordinary levels.
The artistic transformation of Rome accelerated.
Learning and culture continued to shape the intellectual environment surrounding the papal court.
Innocent VIII became the 213th Bishop of Rome. Innocent VIII governed during a period of complex European politics.
The French king seeks to undermine our authority in the south.
Diplomacy remained an important part of papal administration.
The papacy was approaching one of the most recognizable periods of the Renaissance.
The cultural influence of the papal court continued to expand. He became the 214th Bishop of Rome. Alexander VI governed during a complex period of Italian and European politics. The papacy remained deeply connected to the political and cultural life of Renaissance Italy. The 15th century was approaching its final chapter.
The artistic heritage of the papal Renaissance continued to transform Rome.
Pius III became the 215th Bishop of Rome. Pius III served for only a very short period. The Church soon entered another transition.
The 16th century was beginning a new era. Europe was entering a period of profound religious and cultural transformation.
Julius II became the 216th Bishop of Rome. Julius II became closely associated with the monumental artistic transformation of Rome. The papal patronage of Renaissance art reached extraordinary levels.
The city was becoming one of the great artistic centers of Europe.
Art, architecture, scholarship, and papal administration became increasingly interconnected. Leo X became the 207th Bishop of Rome. Leo X presided over a celebrated period of Renaissance cultural life. The papal court continued to support literature, art, and scholarship.
Yet Europe was also entering a period of major religious debate.
Questions about church reform and Christian teaching became increasingly important. He became the 208th Bishop of Rome. Adrian VI inherited a church facing calls for reform. The need for renewal was becoming increasingly visible across Europe. New technology and new ideas were rapidly changing Christian Europe. The printing revolution allowed religious ideas to travel farther and faster.
Clement VII became the 219th Bishop of Rome.
Clement VII governed during an exceptionally turbulent period in European history. The papacy faced political pressures while religious divisions continued to grow. The religious landscape of Europe was changing rapidly.
Christian communities experienced an era of profound transformation.
The papacy continued preserving its institutional and spiritual traditions.
40 successive pontificates had carried the story, from Urban V to Clement X.
Paul III became the 220th Bishop of Rome. Paul III became an important figure during the Catholic Reform era. The Council of Trent would become central to the Catholic response to the religious divisions of Europe. The Church entered a major period of institutional and spiritual renewal. Julius III became the 221st Bishop of Rome. The reform of church institutions remained an important concern. Education and formation became increasingly important in the renewal of Catholic life.
The reforming spirit continued beyond the walls of Rome.
Marcellus II became the 222nd Bishop of Rome. Marcellus II served for only a very brief period. The Church soon entered another transition. The work of reform would continue under a new pontificate. Paul IV became the 223rd Bishop of Rome.
Paul IV governed during an intense period of Catholic reform. The Church continued examining its discipline, teaching, and administration.
Catholic reform was becoming a defining feature of the era.
Pius IV became the 224th Bishop of Rome. Pius IV continued the work of the Council of Trent. The reform of Catholic institutions continued through clearer teaching and discipline. The Catholic reform movement began to shape generations of Christian life.
Pius V became the 225th Bishop of Rome.
Pius V became associated with a strong emphasis on spiritual discipline and reform. The implementation of Catholic reform reached local communities. The reform of Christian life continued across the continent. Gregory XIII became the 226th Bishop of Rome.
During this period, scholars worked toward a major reform of the calendar used by the Western Church.
The resulting calendar reform would have a lasting influence on the measurement of dates across much of the world. Science, scholarship, and church administration intersected in the Renaissance world.
Sixtus V became the 227th Bishop of Rome.
Sixtus V undertook major administrative and urban projects in Rome. The physical landscape of Rome was transformed through organized public works. The city was becoming more organized and monumental.
Urban VII became the 228th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate lasted only a few days. His brief pontificate became one of the shortest in papal history. The Church soon moved toward another successor. Gregory XIV became the 229th Bishop of Rome.
Gregory XIV governed during a period of continued religious and political change. Diplomacy remained important as Europe continued to experience religious divisions.
The 16th century was approaching its final decade. Innocent IX became the 230th Bishop of Rome. Innocent IX served for only a very brief period. The Church quickly entered another transition. A longer pontificate would soon begin. Clement VIII became the 231st Bishop of Rome.
Clement VIII governed during a period of important European religious and political developments. Efforts toward reconciliation and unity remained important concerns.
The Catholic Church continued consolidating the reforms of the 16th century. The legacy of the Council of Trent continued to influence Catholic life. Leo XI became the 232nd Bishop of Rome.
Leo XI
served for only a few weeks. The short pontificate quickly gave way to another chapter. The papacy entered the cultural world of the 17th century. Paul V became the 233rd Bishop of Rome. Paul V presided during a period of significant architectural development in Rome. The visual identity of Rome continued to develop. The Papal City was becoming one of Europe's great cultural centers. Gregory XV became the 234th Bishop of Rome. Gregory XV introduced important reforms to the organization of papal elections. The administration of papal elections became increasingly organized. The institutional structure of the papacy continued to evolve. Urban VIII became the 235th Bishop of Rome. Urban VIII presided during a remarkable period of Baroque artistic development. The papal world remained connected to the wider intellectual and artistic culture of 17th century Europe. Rome's monumental character continued to grow. Innocent X became the 236th Bishop of Rome. Innocent X governed during a complex period of European politics. The papacy remained connected to the major political changes of the 17th century. The Church continued navigating a rapidly changing European order. Alexander VII became the 237th Bishop of Rome. Alexander VII became associated with the continued Baroque transformation of Rome. Art and architecture continued to shape the visual identity of the Papal City. The artistic legacy of the papacy continued to expand. Clement IX became the 238th Bishop of Rome. Clement IX governed during a period in which diplomacy remained important to the papacy. The search for cooperation continued across European Christian communities. The 17th century papacy continued to evolve. Clement X became the 239th Bishop of Rome. Clement X continued the papacy during the later 17th century. From Urban V to Clement X, the papacy journeyed from the end of the medieval world into the Renaissance and the early modern age. Innocent XI became the 240th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate unfolded during a period of major political and religious tensions in Europe. The papacy continued to navigate complicated relationships among European powers. Rome remained the spiritual and administrative center of the Catholic Church. Alexander VIII became the 241st Bishop of Rome. His pontificate was brief, but the institutional life of the papacy continued. Innocent XII became the 242nd Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate included important efforts to reform aspects of papal administration.
the papacy continued to develop its diplomatic relationships with European states. Clement XI became the 243rd Bishop of Rome. Clement XI governed during a period of major European political change.
The Church also faced continuing debates over theology and religious practice.
New intellectual currents were reshaping the European world.
Innocent XIII became the 244th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was brief, while the wider Church continued its institutional work. Benedict XIII became the 245th Bishop of Rome.
He emphasized spiritual discipline, religious formation, and renewal.
Education and spiritual formation remained important parts of Catholic life. Clement XII became the 246th Bishop of Rome.
Rome continued developing as an important cultural and religious center.
Benedict XIV became the 247th Bishop of Rome.
Benedict XIV was closely associated with scholarship and intellectual life.
Faith and scholarship increasingly interacted within the intellectual world of Europe. Europe was entering an age of expanding intellectual inquiry. Clement XIII became the 248th Bishop of Rome. The papacy faced increasing political and intellectual pressures. Clement XIV became the 249th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate unfolded during difficult debates over the future of religious institutions. The traditional European order was beginning to change.
Pius VI became the 250th Bishop of Rome.
Pius VI governed during one of the most turbulent periods in modern European history. Revolutionary change was reshaping the political landscape of Europe.
Amid uncertainty, religious communities continued their life of prayer and worship. The papacy entered one of the most difficult periods of its modern history.
Pius VII became the 251st Bishop of Rome. Pius VII began his pontificate during a period of extraordinary European upheaval. The Church entered the turbulent world of the early 19th century. A new century was beginning. Leo XII became the 252nd Bishop of Rome. The papacy continued its work within a rapidly changing European society. Pius VIII became the 253rd Bishop of Rome. His brief pontificate came during another period of political transition. Gregory XVI became the 254th Bishop of Rome. The papacy faced growing intellectual and political debates about modern society. Europe was rapidly entering the modern age. Pius IX
became the 255th Bishop of Rome.
Pius IX governed during one of the most transformative periods in Italian history. Political and national changes were reshaping the Italian peninsula. The papacy faced major questions about its relationship with the modern political world. The 19th century was transforming the world around the papacy. He became the 256th Bishop of Rome. His pontificate engaged deeply with the social questions of the modern age. Industrialization created new questions about work, society, and human dignity. The Church increasingly reflected on its social responsibilities. The papacy entered deeper dialogue with the modern social world. Pius X became the 257th Bishop of Rome. Pius X emphasized renewal in Catholic religious life. Religious education and spiritual formation remained important priorities. The Church entered the 20th century with renewed attention to spiritual life.
Benedict XV became the 258th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate took place during the First World War. The Church sought to promote peace and humanitarian assistance during the conflict.
After the war, Europe faced the long task of rebuilding.
Pius XI became the 259th Bishop of Rome.
Pius XI governed during major political and social changes. The relationship between the Holy See and modern states continued to develop. The
Catholic institutions continued expanding their educational and charitable work.
Pius XII became the 260th Bishop of Rome. Pius XII governed during the Second World War and its aftermath.
Is the gun to the end.
The Church faced enormous humanitarian challenges during the war.
After the conflict, communities began the difficult work of reconstruction.
A new generation was growing up in a rapidly changing world.
John the 23rd became the 261st Bishop of Rome.
John the 23rd called the Second Vatican Council.
The Council opened a major new chapter in the modern history of the Catholic Church. The Council emphasized the universal character of the Church. The Church was preparing to engage more deeply with the modern world.
Paul VI became the 262nd Bishop of Rome.
Paul VI continued the work of the Second Vatican Council. The Council's renewal influenced Catholic life around the world. Dialogue with other Christian communities became an increasingly visible part of church life. The papacy was entering an increasingly global age.
John Paul I became the 263rd Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was very brief.
The Church soon prepared for another succession.
John Paul II became the 264th Bishop of Rome. The papacy became increasingly visible across the world. Global travel and communication brought the papacy closer to Catholics on every continent.
Young people became an increasingly visible part of global Catholic gatherings.
Dialogue among cultures and religions became an important part of international church life.
The papacy continued through a rapidly changing geopolitical world.
The Church increasingly presented itself as a worldwide community.
Benedict XVI became the 265th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate was closely associated with theology, faith, and reason.
The relationship between Christian faith and modern intellectual culture remained an important theme.
The ancient institution was now operating within a highly connected world.
New communication technologies were changing how religious ideas reached people. He became the 266th Bishop of Rome.
His pontificate placed strong emphasis on mercy, service, and care for people in need.
Service to people on the margins became a prominent theme. The global character of the Catholic Church remained increasingly visible. Care for creation became an increasingly important subject in modern church teaching. Environmental responsibility became part of a wider conversation about human responsibility. Dialogue among cultures and religions remained an important part of global engagement. The papacy continued speaking to a church spread across the entire world. The ancient tradition of pilgrimage continued into the modern age. The long historical memory of the Church continued to be preserved. Centuries of change had transformed the world around the papacy. Yet prayer, worship, service, and community remained continuous themes. A new chapter in the modern history of the papacy would soon begin. The Catholic Church continued serving a worldwide community. Cultural diversity had become one of the defining features of global Catholic life.
The papacy now existed within a truly global landscape.
Humanitarian service remained an important expression of Christian responsibility. Education, charity, and community service continued across the Catholic world.
The 21st century brought another chapter in the long history of the papacy.
A new pontificate began within an already global church. The worldwide character of Catholicism remained central to the modern papacy. Modern communication continues to reshape how the Church reaches its worldwide community.
The challenges of the modern world require continued dialogue and cooperation.
The papacy now serves a church connected across the entire planet.
Yet the ancient traditions of prayer and pilgrimage continue. The memory of centuries remains an essential part of the Church's identity.
The history of the papacy is a story of continuity through extraordinary change.
Generations of believers continued to carry the story forward.
The Church remained a global community, shaped by many cultures.
Rome remained at the center of the continuing story.
Across centuries, prayer remained one of the enduring foundations of Christian life. Service continued to connect the Church with the needs of ordinary people. From Innocent XI to the present day, the papacy has continued through centuries of change. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the history of the 267 bishops of Rome. If you enjoy, your support helps us continue creating meaningful stories about Christian history. Subscribe to the channel and join us for the next journey. Thank you, and God bless you.